This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The United Shore Professional Baseball League games at Jimmy John's Field are the fun family entertainment experience that you just can't afford to miss. It's Thirsty Thursdays, Firework Fridays, live music Saturdays, and Sunday Fun Day for the kids. And don't forget, kids get to run the bases after every game, and parking is always free. Jimmy John's Field in downtown Utica is your summer destination. Get your tickets today at USPBL.com.
And welcome, everybody, to the second edition of the USPBL Podcast. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, Vito Churko. Make sure you give him a follow on Twitter at Vito Jerome. Make sure you give a follow to the USPBL on Twitter at USPBL for all the action and all the things that are happening over there at Jimmy John's Field over in Utica. Great stuff going on. Vito, I hear another player has signed with the Major League Ball Club.
Yes, 33 players now in totality. So 6 this season, 1 more than last year already, Doc. So very impressive for the United Shore Professional Baseball League. And the name of the player that recently inked a contract with a Major League Baseball team is right-handed pitcher Matt Dallas. Now, Chris Newell, actually, of the Birmingham Bloomfield Beavers, he posted on Facebook about Matt Dallas, this right-handed pitcher, and how instrumental he was in the Beavers, repeating last year as champs in the United Shore Professional Baseball League. And he signed with the San Francisco Giants on Saturday night. So how about that? It is at 33 signed guys with Major League Baseball organizations from the United Shore Professional Baseball League since the league started in 2016.
That makes 6 this year.
Yeah, more than last year, like I said again. So impressive for the USPBL in downtown Utica at Jimmy John's Field.
To check the standings at this point in time, the Beavers sit atop at 16 wins and 13 losses. The Unicorns are also at 16 wins, but 14 losses. The Woolly Mammoths are even, 500, 15 wins, 15 losses. And the Diamond Hoppers are in last place currently with 13 wins and 18 losses. This week on the USPBL Podcast, we got a great guest. So if you heard the podcast, the debut edition last week, you heard about Von Joshua. You heard about the great accomplishments he's had. And tell us a little bit about him, Vito, and I'm looking forward to the conversation. An extensive history of coaching in Major Leagues.
Von Joshua, Eastside Diamond Hoppers assistant manager. So Pat Adams was our guest last week, fellow De La Salle alum. I'll give me that shout out for Warren De La Salle Collegiate High School in Warren, Michigan. So Pat plays for Von and the Eastside Diamond Hoppers in the USPBL. And Pat was speaking about how Von Joshua has been so instrumental in his development as a hitter in the USPBL this season. So now Von played in the majors for 10 seasons, was drafted in the first round back in way before you were even born, John Macaroon, in 1967 with the San Francisco Giants. He played with the Dodgers in the 1974 World Series, had 4 pinch hit ABs against the Oakland A's in that series, in which the Dodgers lost. Also spent many, many years coaching in big league organizations. And at the big league level once as well with the Chicago Cubs as their hitting coach in 2009. So a lot of baseball coaching experience, and with several Major League Baseball clubs leading up to this gig with the Eastside Diamond Hoppers.
We're looking forward to the conversation here on this podcast. I'm looking forward to dialing up Von Joshua. He'll be right up right after this.
And it is Von Joshua, Eastside Diamond Hoppers assistant manager. Von, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. We just lost a tough game today, but other than that, no, I'm doing good.
How has coaching in the USPBL been so far for you?
It's been an experience for me. This is the first time I've ever been in a independent type of environment, and I really didn't know what to expect. And but it's been fun. Trying to help these young kids. For a lot of them, this is kind of getting towards their last chance or so. And when you help them and you see some success from them, we've helped a few guys, and it feels extra special. Like I say, this is the first time I've ever been in an independent environment, and all these kids are just so hungry to learn, and they're just like sponges. So but it's been fun. I've been enjoying it. It's been good for me.
Before we get more into your time in the USPBL as a coach so far, let's talk a bit about your Major League Baseball playing career. You spent 10 seasons in the bigs, and you were drafted in 1967 by the San Francisco Giants in the first round. What was that day
Yes.
like for you being drafted in the first round by the San Francisco Giants?
It's funny you should ask that because I grew up in the Bay Area, but I was always a Dodger fan. So, I wasn't a Giant fan at all. And actually, what happened when they came to my house, they really didn't offer me, what I felt, a first round draft choice you get. So, and I was going to school at the time. So I just said, I think I'll wait, and then the Dodgers drafted me, signed me, 6 months later. But I mean, it was an honor, and like I said, I ended up playing for the Giants after all. I kind of said, well, I guess it was just fate that I was going to have to play for the Giants sooner or later. But it was a good feeling, to be drafted like that. But back in those days, they had the two drafts. They had the regular June draft, and they had the January draft, which they call the secondary draft for kids that didn't sign in June or kids that came out of school at different times. So that's what that draft was.
And honestly, that kind of segues into my next question. I was going to ask you, how different was the draft back then compared to the draft now, from your knowledge of how the draft is handled and conducted at this point?
Well, right now there's a lot more money involved.
Yes, right? Sure, a lot more money. I know that.
Yeah, these guys, I probably wouldn't be in the independent league if I got the money these guys are getting now. But it was different. Back then, it was, they had more teams involved in the minor leagues. So it wasn't that easy. It wasn't hard, to get drafted, so to speak. But there were just so many, each organization had a lot more teams than they do now. So moving up through the system was a little different than it is now. Some of these kids, especially the kids that, sign for a big bonus, those kids not going to spend very much time in the minor leagues. But, back then you really had, each step I went up, I saw just how tough the competition was. I remember when I got the AA ball, I said, whoa, these guys are really good. I was 20 years old, and most of those guys were 25, 26 years old, and they had been in the league for like 3 or 4 years. And I'm saying to myself, wow, if these guys been here 4 years, what chance do I have? But actually, a couple of the guys I live with, the older guys, they say, hey, kid, don't worry, you're just passing through. And sure enough, I went to AAA the next year, and I was in the big leagues that year.
During your playing career, Vaughn, I read that you were somewhat of a pinch hit specialist. You collected your fair share of pinch hit ABs, including with the LA Dodgers in the 1974 World Series against the Oakland A's. Now, what was that experience like for you, being a pinch hitter, coming off the bench compared to starting as part of the lineup?
Well, hitting is the hardest thing to do in baseball, and I think the other two hard things to do in baseball is pinch hitting and coaching hitting. So, but pinch hitting is not easy. I mean, you've been on the bench, and back in those days we didn't have batting cages and stuff like that to go and warm up and anything like that. But it was tough, and back then, the starters went longer, so you were usually going to face a starter. Like if like the way the Dodgers had it when I came up, usually if it was a leadoff situation, me being a leadoff type of a guy, I would be the guy to pinch hit. Or if it was a situation where a guy was going to drive in a run or something like, they would have some, one of the more power hitters hit. But it was a tough job, but. I mean, unfortunately, in the World Series, I hit the ball hard 3 times. I have 4 pinch hit at bats, and I hit the ball hard 3 times, but no luck. So that's the luck of pinch hitting, And like I say, it's not an easy job. It's a tough job.
What were your memories of the 1974 season, and especially a team that went to the World Series?
Well, one thing I remember. Tommy John was on our team that year, and that's when Tommy got hurt, and I remember it was a Sunday afternoon game, and I was sitting down at the end of the bench, and he threw a pitch, and he just walked off the mound, and I was the closest one to him next to the runway, going up to the clubhouse, and I said, "You all right, TJ?" And he said, "Nope." And he just walked on up in, and I remember later on that year, we were in the playoffs with Pittsburgh, and Dr. Joe, who did the procedure, he gave me a ride to the ballpark, and I said, "So how is Tommy?" And he said, no way in the world is that going to work, you know. And little did we know it was going to make history, and now, you know, he had a surgery named after him. But we had a great team. It was a little tough for me because, you know, here again, I had good numbers in the minors, and you know, you always feel you should be playing, but, you know, I had some good competition, you know, Bill Buckner, all these Steve Garvey and I platoon one year, and, you know, Steve was banging the ball out of the ballpark and stuff. So it was very competitive, you know, but, you know, that was one of the toughest things for me. Like I say, you know, just not getting the chance to play as much as I was young. And, you know, you think you're supposed to be playing, but I think, you know, when you look back, you say, oh, those guys are pretty good hitters you were going up against. And the Dodgers were already loaded. They had Willie Davis, Manny Mota, you know, Willie Crawford, all these guys in the outfield. So it was tough breaking into that team. But, you know, we really should have won in 73. But Cincinnati overtook us. We were really young. And Cincinnati overtook us. And actually, in the '74 World Series, I thought that we had a better team position by position. But, you know, Oakland, that was their third year in a row, and they knew how to win. And, you know, I think our guys, you know, there was a lot of jive talking back and forth, smack talking back and forth. But once we got on the field, you know, they played better than we did. But it was exciting year. Like I say, you know, there are a lot of players, great players. I played with Hank Aaron his last year. He never got to a World Series. So that was a special year for us, even though I wasn't, like I say, playing as much as I thought. It was a very, very special year.
Vaughn, as you noted, some great players played in front of you, but I still had to believe, and you kind of already indicated it, that it was tough at times riding the bench, you know, not being able to start every single game. How tough truly of an experience was it for you and mentally taxing, not being able to start on an everyday basis?
It was very tough. Actually, to be honest with you, I went in. We were in St. Louis, and I remember, and I forget who. I think the center fielder got hurt. Here, you know, I was a center field. Usually I would go in for defensive purposes, and we were in St. Louis, and I thought I was going to start because the guy got hurt, and Walter also, who was the manager, stuck Joe Ferguson out there, who wasn't even an outfielder, you know, and I think that was kind of the last straw for me. A lot of the guys came into the clubhouse, and they kind of like, you know, patted me on the back. You know, I was a young kid, and like I say, you know, it was tough. And actually, like I said, I went and asked to be traded, and Mr. O'Malley looked at me and said, "You mean you want to be traded? We're going to win the pennant, you know? I said, Peter, I just want to play, you know." And so he said, "Well, I'm not going to trade you, so you just go in there and stick it out, you know." But they ended up sending me to the Giants right after that. But it was frustrating because, like I said, I won a couple of batting titles in the minor leagues, and all the group that I was with teammates and guys in the league that I played against, you know, I won a couple of batting titles, and I had out hit them. But, you know, my biggest thing was, I wasn't a home run hitter, you know, and they were just starting, you know, the Dave Winfields, the Parkers, and all these big 6'6" power hitter outfielders were coming along, and and I wasn't a power hitter by no means, and that kind of hurt. But it was tough, especially trying to break into the Dodgers lineup. You know, that was a tough lineup to try to break into.
Von Joshua on the line with us on episode number 2 of the USPBL podcast. Now, what lessons did your 10 seasons as a player in the bigs teach you?
Patience. You know, it taught me a lot of patience. And you know, I Tommy Lasorda, I owe an awful lot to Lasorda. He, I started playing for Tommy. I went to AAA in '69, and I was coming from AA, and Tommy was coming from rookie ball. Actually, he brought Bobby Valentine with him from rookie ball, and from the start, I didn't know Tommy. I heard a lot about him, and I was very, very quiet and stuff, but I remember early on playing for him, he said, well, you're going to make a good coach someday. And, when you're that age, you don't even think about anything like that. But he said, you're going to make an excellent coach or manager someday. And I said, really? You think so? And, and as time went on, my parents were teachers. My dad was a principal. So I kind of had that, those genes in me, so to speak. So, and even back then, I was always helping the guys my teammates. I was always suggesting things. I was always able to see things that they were doing wrong and stuff like that and help them. So that really carried me through my coaching career because, the thing about trying to, like I say, hitting is the hardest thing to do. And teaching it is even harder. So you have first of all, you have to know what the problem is, and after you find out what the problem is, you got to be able to fix it. So a lot of these kids, they don't even know what their problem is, so they just keep doing it over and over and over. So, like I say, it showed me a lot of patience, and that's the one I think one of my greatest aspects. Throughout my coaching career, because I was very patient and all the kids could really talk to me. And being a hitting coach or a pitching coach, you gotta get the trust of the player. And it's not like the manager, so to speak. But as a hitting or a pitching coach, you really got to get their trust, and they have to really believe in you. So I think that was the big thing that I learned. Oh, and like I say, being under Lasorda for so many years, first, I was under Austin, and he had his style. He was a very quiet type of manager, more of a veterans type of manager, where Tommy was just completely on the other extreme. So I had a little bit of both of them, So, but I learned a lot from Tommy, and like I said, he really helped me out, not just through my career, but I remember when I did leave after '74, and he comes up to me later on, I think it was 77 or 78. He said, I'm going to get you back to the Dodgers. And I said, oh, great. He said, but you won't be playing. And I said, well, well, Tommy, I said, I could accept it now. I was like 28 or so like that. I said, I could accept it now. But back when I was 22 or 23, I couldn't accept it. But I think that's the biggest thing. And, I think the biggest thing was just being patient, and fortunately I grew up in Oakland, where there were a lot of great players, Hall of Famers, Frank Robinson, Vito Pinson. I patterned my game after Vito. Joe Morgan went to my high school, so I had a lot of guys that they came back and really showed us the correct way. So I had that going for me too, that I learned how to do things the right way early on in my career. And I just, I just passed all the things that I learned from all those guys in the 10 years. I played with Hank Aaron his last year. I used to always pick Pete Rose's brain for 10 years. All those great hitters, Billy Williams, everybody. And so I took a little bit from all those guys that I learned from. And I took that to my coach. And when I first started coaching, I didn't think I was going to want to do it. But I remember Fred Clare, who hired me, he said, well, give it a couple of years or so. And I said, okay, I'll give it a couple of years. And I didn't even think about it after that. I loved it. So it's very, very gratifying, I think, to be a coach. It's like I say, it's especially a hitting coach. It's tough. It's a tough job. It's these kids, like I say, hitting is the hardest thing to do in sports. So, like I said, trying to teach it is even harder.
What's your favorite memory from playing for Tommy Lasorda?
We got in a lot of fights.
Now, fights over what? Fights over what?
Oh,
Von?
just Tommy. Tommy started. So it was funny. Tommy was, oh God, he got fans hated us. The umpires hated us. The other teams hated us. They thought we were cocky. The one team that I had gone back to the AAA, and we're in the bad time in '72 at Albuquerque Club. And, yeah, we had a great club. We had Tom Bashork at first, Davey Lopes at second, Steve Hunt, Ron Say at third, me, Paul Ray Powell, Larry Heisel in the outfield. We had both Steve Yeager and Joe Ferguson catching. So it was just, we just got Tommy. We were always in something. There was always, and Tommy was funny because, early that first year that I played for him in '69, God, if we lost a game, he would go in there and just completely tear his office up. I mean, you could hear chairs banging and against the walls and stuff, and him screaming. But then 5 minutes later, he'd come out and say, "Okay, let's get him tomorrow." So that was Tommy. And I can remember like Jim Gilliam was my coach when I first got to the Dodgers, and he and a couple other older guys, they played with Tommy, and they say, "Hey, every time Tommy pitched, we knew it was going to be a fight." So he kind of carried that into his coaching career, but it was never a dull moment with Tommy. But one thing about Tommy, though, like I said, though, a lot of managers just kind of group everybody into like one little ball, but Tommy, he got into each individual to find out what made each individual tick, and he knew how to, he knew what buttons to push it, and he knew how to push you, and how to get you going. So that was the one really good thing I learned from Tommy. Like I say, and he always another good aspect that Tommy did for us. We would take batting practice, and he would make us sit on the bench during the other team's batting practice, and we would have to critique every hitter that from the other team. So he instilled all that kind of stuff into it. So those are some of the things I remember, but it was never a dull moment. I can remember we went back then. We used to go to Hawaii. I remember he snuck his son on the airplane once going to Hawaii. That's like a 8-hour trip from LA, but he snuck his his son on there. So there was never a dull moment. Let's put it that way.
I can tell, never a dull moment with Lasorda in the clubhouse. The definition of a character and a fiery dude. Shifting back to the USPBL now for a little bit here. What's it been like coaching Pat Adams with the Diamond Hoppers, who was guest number 1 on the USPBL podcast for us?
Yeah, Pat has been he's been a special project for me. We're really, really trying to move him and get somebody to like him and want him. I think he's proven that he can play, with an affiliate. I'm surprised he's still here. I wouldn't be surprised. I won't be surprised that an affiliate would pick him up. He's a very, very conscientious kid, and when I first got Pat, the first day I met him, he comes up to me and he says, "I can't pull the ball. I can't hit the inside pitch." I asked him, I say, "So what are you going to do with this pitch?" I put my fist up like a high inside strike. And I said, "What are you going to do with that pitch?" He said, "Take it." I said, "Come on, you're going to take that pitch with 2 strikes? Give him a swing." And so what I've been doing with Pat a lot is I've been trying to teach him how to pull. And, he has that nice stroke up the middle. He got 3 hits last night. He got 2 hits today again, So he's been a very, very pleasant guy to work with. And he's just, like I say, he's just like a sponge, and swing gets a little long sometimes. But like I say, I'm trying to teach him how to pull the ball. And we've been working on that. And, hey, he's been right up at the top of the league the whole year. And, so it's like I say, it's been, he's been a pleasant surprise for me because like I say, I didn't know what to expect coming into independent ball, but Pat's been a very, very pleasant, very good surprise for me.
Your biggest word of advice to your Diamond Hoppers hitters?
Well, my biggest advice is, the problem right now, guys, my biggest advice is stop trying to hit home runs. Everybody's trying to hit a home run. This whole new launch angle stuff, has all these kids. Everybody's trying to lift the ball, and I try to explain to them, hey, everybody's not going to be a home run hitter. I try to stress to these guys that, hey, you got to learn to become a good hitter first before you start worrying about the power. So that's one of the biggest things. And mechanically wise, this whole thing of lifting your leg is going to give you more power. I don't know where that came from, because I always point out to guys that, hey, all those guys who got 400 home runs, only one guy lifted his leg. That was A-Rod, so all of a sudden now lifting your leg up is going to give you more power. But that's the big thing. And I always stress to them to try to use the whole field. All your good hitters use the whole field. And so those are the two main things, to try to be patient at the plate, not to swing at the pitcher's pitch, and just, hit the ball where it's pitched, use the whole field, and just don't try to hit every ball out of the ballpark. That's the main thing I stress to them.
Spray the ball to all parts of the ballpark, which seems like a foreign concept nowadays in the major leagues among those major league hitters. I mean, there's no more guys like Placido Polanco, who I loved growing up with the Detroit Tigers, a contact guy who hit for average. There's not many of those guys anymore, Vaughn, at this point.
It's gone. It's gone. Like I say, they putting this shift on, and for the life of me, and you look at and I tell the guy, you look at these pitches, they're not pitching you. They don't have the control to pitch you strictly into that shift. So just hit the ball the other way, and these guys won't do it. It's hurt a lot of the big power hitters in the big leagues. For example, like Davis, for example, of Baltimore. I mean, it's killed him, so it's hurt some of these big pull hitters. But, that's the thing, I just stress to them, hey, you got to hit the all fields, and you're right. They don't, you don't see that very often anymore. And I stress to them every day that, hey, every good hitter, every Hall of Fame hitter that you see, they not only hit home runs, but they hit for high average. They had high on base percentages. They walked, and above all, they hit the ball to all fields. So to be a good hitter, you have to hit the ball, to all fields.
And it seems like the guys can't adjust to beat the shift, are refusing to do so, and or are unable to do so because of their skill set.
You're right, absolutely. And the biggest part is this launch thing. I mean, if you're putting, if your swing plane is in that launch angle, it's going to be hard to hit the ball to the other opposite field. So in other words, your barrel is going to be below your handle, and it's hard to hit the ball the other way if you do that. So I think it was already kind of tough, but this whole launch angle thing has really killed these guys, and that was one of the reasons why a lot of those guys can't hit the ball the other way, because they don't have. We were always stressed, like to have a level swing. But now they're trying to lift the ball. If you're trying to lift the ball, no way in the world are you going to hit the ball the opposite field. Bryce Harper, for example, learned that early in the season. He was trying to justify that money that they gave him, and he was going out there trying to hit every single pitch out of the ballpark. And finally, he calmed down, and all of a sudden, you knew he was getting close because he started hitting balls out to left field. And since then, he's been swinging real well. But that's the key to hitting, is that you have to be able to. I remember Joe Torre once said. I remember I was still in school, and he said, you got to give in to the pitcher. And I said, well, what do you mean you got to give in to the pitcher? He said, take what the pitcher gives you. In other words, wherever he pitches, you hit it that way. And these guys don't do it. You're right. They go up there, they want to jerk everything, and they're just making the pitcher's job that much easier.
We appreciate your insight regarding hitting because, for me, my two favorite hitters were Tony Gwynn and Wade Boggs. So I grew up watching contact hitters and guys that could just get on base. You just knew, okay, there's a above average chance these guys are going to get on base, and they knew the art of hitting. So I greatly appreciate
the art of hitting.
The art of hitting.
That's true.
Vaughn, I'll let you go with this. How did you end up in the USPBL?
Actually, Paul Noche, They have a thing. Major League Baseball has a thing that they put on clinics around the country, and what they'll do is they'll contact if they like say they had a clinic here in Detroit. It's out at Orchard Lake, the Catholic school there. I can't remember the name of it.
Orchard Lake St. Mary's.
Yes,
right?
They had a clinic there, and Paul Noche, and then we had one actually. Where I met Paul was where the old Tiger Stadium used to be, where the police athletic league is.
Detroit PAL headquarters. Really cool.
So we had a clinic there, and I spoke at it, and Paul Noche was there, and I had known the name. I coached against him, years ago, but we were talking, and he mentioned to me that he said, hey, I managed the independent. I didn't even know. I had heard, I always heard this Jimmy John, but I live out on the west side. I didn't know anything about it. And he said, yeah, you ought to come out and check out a game. So I go out there. It was like the third game before the end of the season. My wife and my stepson went out there, and he was talking to me. He said, I like that. Would you like to be a coach? And before I could answer, my wife and my stepson said, yeah, he would. They answered for me, So we kind of left it at that. I came back out to the last game and watched the last game by myself. But anyway, around Christmas time, I kind of pretty much forgotten about it. But around Christmas time, Paul calls me and he said, hey, I'm officially offering you a job. Do you want to? And I said, sure. So it was local, local in the sense that it's here in the Detroit area. But I was more than happy. Like I say, every time I think I'm retired, they keep reeling me back.
Somebody gets you back out, Von, right? In so many words. And you know what? Nobody had an answer for you on this week's episode of the USPBL podcast. And it's been a pleasure talking with you for nearly a half an hour, I think, at this point.
Well,
a lot of great anecdotes.
My pleasure. Thank you. Hope to do it again.
Thank you, and best of luck the rest of the way this season with the Diamond Hoppers, too.
All right. Thank you very much.
Man, Vito, that was a great conversation. Love hearing baseball stories. And I think it's something we'll talk about more with these coaches is the art of hitting, in that a lot of these guys want the home run because of the fact that, hey, when you hit home runs, you make big buku bucks.
And you get the chicks, all right? Which we can't do because we don't hit home runs.
Vito, that's all good too, but when someone's willing to scratch you a check for maybe $35, $40 million a year for 10 years, if you can hit the long ball, I can understand why they want to look at launch angles, right?
So you're doing it for the money over the chicks.
No
all right,
doubt
you're doing
about
it for both. Doing it for both. And at the USPBL, coming up here, now Wednesday through Sunday, you got games at Jimmy John's Field in downtown Utica. Now, on Wednesday night, it is Italian-American Heritage Night. So I guess I should be there, okay? And it's 2-for-1 Wednesdays. Thursday, you have Mardi Gras night. Now, that sounds like a heck of a lot of fun. Featuring Parade Company Big Heads. And it's also, what I really like, Thirsty Thursday. Sponsored by Dave and Buster. So we have to get to the ballpark for that purpose right there, Doc, as well. I think my friends and I, we'll go for that. Friday, the Friday Fireworks Spectacular. Saturday, we have German-American Heritage Night featuring the Enzian Band. And Sunday is Parents Appreciation Day and a Reptile Day presented by the Reptarium. So a lot of fun stuff coming up this week at Jimmy John's Field in downtown Utica.
For all information, again, regarding the USPBL, go visit their website. Great work there. And Vito, if you can't get out to Jimmy John's, there's an opportunity for you to check out the games that are streamed live on YouTube. Go check out the USPBL, the United Shore Professional Baseball League, on YouTube and across their various social media platforms. But if you get a chance, go out to Jimmy John's Field, a great place to watch local independent baseball. Like we said earlier, 6 players this year have been signed with Major League squads. And a point of emphasis is development. These kids are developing and they're doing great work. And Coach Von Joshua is out there among them, trying to teach them the art of hitting, which is something that is very, very important. So with that, this podcast comes to a close. I look forward to talking to you again next week on the 3rd edition of the USPBL Podcast.
And follow the USPBL on Twitter at USPBL, and their website is USPBL.com. Guys, been great talking to you all. Adios.
The United Shore Professional Baseball League games at Jimmy John's Field are the fun family entertainment experience that you just can't afford to miss. It's Thirsty Thursdays, Firework Fridays, live music Saturdays, and Sunday Fun Day for the kids. And don't forget, kids get to run the bases after every game, and parking is always free. Jimmy John's Field in downtown Utica is your summer destination. Get your tickets today at USPBL.com.